Okay, this is video number 4, and this is for authors who want to get their books published by established publishers, small, medium, and large publishers, but would aspire to be published by, a Simon and Schuster, a HarperCollins, Penguin Random House, and they want to make it their career. Okay, just to start out, one misnomer is that a lot of people have the idea that they want to go this traditional publishing route. They've written a story and they just want to get it published. I need to let you know that most editors and agents who are the gatekeepers for the publishing world are not interested in someone who has one book. Okay? They're just not. They're only really interested in career people. And the reason for that is they know that in order to hit home runs, which is all they're really concerned with, and home runs means, a book that makes the New York Times bestseller list and sells hundreds of thousands of copies. The only way they're going to get authors like that are if they are working on their first, second, third, fourth book, because it takes that much to get an author popular enough to where they have a fan base enough to where that book can basically go viral. Okay. It's very rare that a first-time author has a book that makes the New York Times bestseller list. It can happen, but editors aren't, and especially agents aren't interested in representing someone who is just has a one-and-done book and just wants out. So if they find out that you have one book and that's it, they almost will never work with you. If they find out that, like one of the common questions that editors will ask a prospective author is, well, what are you working on? What titles do you have? What books do you have? Books meaning books, manuscripts that are not published yet. What do you have? And sometimes if you meet them at a conference, they'll be like, they want an elevator pitch of your first book, second book, third book, the books that you've got in your backlist of work. And if you say, well, I have one book. I wrote it for my kids or my grandkids, and I just want to get it published. It's not going to be interested in you. So that's kind of the first step. And if that is you, I would go back and watch video 1 again and watch the right video. So this is a 7-video series, and this is really not the video for you. If you want to make the writing a career, then this is the video that you should be watching. So the first thing I would suggest that you do is look up the chapter of the SCBWI in your area. That's Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators. So SCBWI. And there's probably a chapter in your area. They're the largest children's book organization in the world. They're in every country and every state pretty much here in the U.S. or area. And there's local chapters. There's national conventions that you can go to. But they're a really good resource. And people that get published typically belong to that organization. More than the advice that I'm going to give you in this video, you really need to immerse yourself with other people who are trying to do the same thing that you're trying to do, and like-minded people. And there's information that you're going to pick up just from being around those kinds of people and having the resources that they have, and like forming critique groups and things like that. So that's if an author tells me, well, they want to get a book published, but I tell them about the SCBWI and they don't really want to have anything to do with it, I think they're not really serious. So it is the organization for children. Now we at SVS Learn and our course at Children's Book Pro, we teach people how to be illustrators. Okay, and this organization is for writers and illustrators. So especially someone who is looking to write and author their books as well as illustrate them, or author their books alone. You're going to want to have, you're going to want to look up the chapter in your area for SCBWI. Okay. Having said that, give you a little bit of history on the publishing industry more recently. they went through a huge shift around 2010. We had the stock market crash and the housing crash in 2008, 9, 10. And because of that, people weren't spending as much money on books. And because of that, the economy really tanking. Publishers let go a lot of their staff. They let go a lot of editors. And what they did was they heaped on the same amount of work on the editors that they kept and the art directors they kept. So what you have, and they really haven't hired them all back. So there's the publishing industry basically changed in that instead of having editors looking and prospecting to find new manuscripts, they kind of offloaded that responsibility onto author and illustrator agents. And so what they do a lot of times now is they have close relationships with children's book literary agents, and they will ask them, what do you have that's new? What do you have that is in the genre of, bullying, let's say, for a topic for children's books? We're looking to publish a book on bullying. What kind of manuscripts do you have on that? What kind of manuscripts do you have that include diverse characters and things like that? So the publishers are relying on agents, and what that means is you really need to, if you're going to go this route to try to become published by one of these big publishers, or even the middle or small ones, they're all pretty much relying on getting manuscripts suggested by agents. And because of that, that's really the door that you need to go through to get into traditional publishing. So you need to find an agent. And the way that you can do this is simply just visit their websites. They're all online. I would Google children's literary agent, children's book agent, children's book literary agent, those kinds of search terms. And send them a query letter on, here, I've got these manuscripts. I wouldn't do it if I only had one manuscript, I just don't think that they will represent you if you don't have a body of work to submit to them. If you haven't had any instruction on what not to do in your query letter and what not to do in your writing, in your children's book manuscript, then there are going to be red flags in your manuscript and or query letter that will tip agents into not even responding to you or sending you a form letter back, a form rejection letter. The way that you learn these things is, again, through that organization, SCBWI. That's one way of learning them. There are online classes. There are classes at some universities on writing for children, writing children's books. And some of those things I can just tell you right now are the same questions that are asked at every SCBWI conference, which are, or question, or guidelines that are given by editors when they give their keynote, which is basically, word counts. We're looking for word counts in a 32-page picture book between, right around 300 words, maybe 500 words, but not much more than that. So you'll have someone, if you send in a manuscript that's 1,000 words, they're going to look at it and go, well, this person doesn't know what they're doing. They don't know how to write for a children's book. So you're just out, and you're going to go, well, my story was great. And it might be great. It might have great storytelling, but they are going to think, if you didn't even know how to edit it down to, and be able to tell that story in fewer words, then it's just, you're too much work to take on, and they're just not going to take you on. So you need to know that. You need to know about rhyming books and what their advice is on rhyming books. And that's just a couple of things, how to craft a good story, the parts of a story, and what makes things, like what makes your book special. Why should they publish your book over someone else's? Because, and if you don't know this, publishers have a slush pile. They call it a slush pile of unsolicited manuscripts that have been sent in by authors, and they don't even have time to read them. Okay, so they don't even, often won't even. Sometimes they have interns go through slush pile. But your best bet is to learn how to write for the publishing world for in children's books, and then submit your work properly. And I hate the fact that they it goes against my grain to when I say you have to do it properly. But I mean, like, these are the gatekeepers, and on their website they've got like criteria of like how they want you to submit to them in their query letter, and because they hold the keys, you kind of have to play the game that they're wanting to play. So you have to submit under their guidelines. They're all going to be a little bit different, and it's interesting to hear them give these talks because sometimes they contradict each other on what they're looking for. But it's the thing that you have to do. So, in this situation, you don't have to find an illustrator. In fact, they don't want you to try to find an illustrator. Okay, they pride themselves in having access to every illustrator that exists on this planet, at least the ones that are marketing to them and the ones that are established. And they pride themselves in being able to take your manuscript. Let's say they buy your manuscript. They don't want you to pair it with the person that you know that lives near you or that you met that's an illustrator. They want to find someone on the list that matches your book perfectly, stylistically. And that is something that they insist on. If you're a well-established author, you can make suggestions on who you'd like to illustrate your book, and they will take it under advisement, and sometimes they'll give you the illustrator that you requested. But that's one of the misnomers in the children's book world, is authors often think that they have to find an illustrator to submit with, and no, you don't. Your writing needs to stand on its own, and then you submit. Now, one question that's asked all the time in conferences is, well, what if I write in a way where I'm leaving out some descriptive words because I want the illustrator to fill in those words in the picture. So I want the kids to make predictions based on the illustrations, and I don't want to spell it out. And that is a great way to write. Often that really works for your story. Often that's what teachers love because they teach prediction in the classroom. And editors and art directors love that kind of writing too. So naturally you would think, well, I need to have the illustrator send in sketches with my manuscript so it can explain that, so it can work together. No, you don't have to do that. You just simply put artist notes or illustrator notes in the manuscript in brackets or something like that, and just say, this is what I'm thinking for the picture. And then the editor, they're smart. They're going to go, okay, that totally makes sense. That's all you need to do. You do not need to find an illustrator. The publisher will do that. So in this case, all you do is write. You send in your writing, you get agented, and then you wait for your agent to shop the book. If they sell your book, then you just wait for the publisher to find the illustrator, work with the illustrator, get the book illustrated, send it to the printer, and get it published. And then you get books sent to you in the mail. You'll have a contract, and they'll pay you an advance, and then they'll pay you royalties against that advance. That's really the best way, and I think, and the easiest way to get your books published in a really good way. It's the hardest way to get chosen and to get your stories written in a way that you have something valuable enough for them to want to pay you for. But once you do get in that door, and once you start to establish yourself, it's a great career path because you just get to do what you love, and you can leave all the other jobs to the publisher. The last thing on this list, though, is that the publishers are really going to want you to help sell the books. They don't want you to, they'll want you to share your books on social media, that's a joy to do. That's super easy to do. But put on your website and things like that. But what they'll really want you to do is school visits. They want you to go into schools and talk about your books and read to children your books, and that's usually fun. Most authors enjoy doing that. that's kind of the fun part. And you can actually make a lot of money doing school visits. Some schools pay $1,500 to $2,000 a day. Some school districts will bring you in for a week to go to different schools, and they'll pick up all of your travel expenses and lodging and everything. So that's actually a fun part of the job that a lot of authors enjoy doing. So thanks for watching this video, and I hope that this gave you more information on how to get into the children's book world. And anyway, good luck.